Hello folks, welcome to the Land Tamer stream. I am now streaming from a hotel room in another state, about, 5 or so hours from Florida, more or less. So I was on the road most of the day. I got a nice upgrade on the rental car. I had to rent a car, and it was supposed to be a compact, and I ended up with like a BMW. So that's kind of cool. And it was kind of nice because I was able to connect the iPhone and listen to some podcasts today, which that's what I want to talk about a little bit today. It's going to be brief, like I said. Let me go and pull up the chat, and hopefully everything is working. I don't have all my diagnostics loaded, so I can't really see as well here. Okay, looks like we're live, which is great. Not sure how good the audio is. Looks like the, well, let's see, are you even getting audio? Yes, good deal. Anyway, so speaking of networking podcast, here's kind of thing. You all know about this because when you're preparing for an exam or you're studying for a certification, you do your best to keep up with material that is out there. And granted, at one time there was not a lot of content in the networking community. It was kind of sparse. So, you might get one show a week of the Packet Pushers, maybe. And that was plenty. There were a lot of blogs, which was great, but now we got blogs. The Packet Pushers is no longer a single podcast. Like, they have multiple podcasts, great shows. You've got Network Collective. You've got some streamers now who I like to catch up on. I like to Banner MOTD was just streaming. And we had, Tony E and Big Abe and other. There's just a number of streamers now. I try to catch up on that content, not always live, but I usually try to watch it later to see what people are doing. And hey, Bashy Mashy's in. Good to have you, my friend. Glad to see you here. But yeah, so that is always a challenge, and I'm kind of spoiled. I work from home. So that's why I had to rent a car. Like, I don't even have actually a proper car right now. My wife's kind of taking that over when she moved here. Hey, good bits, man. Oh, why is it spamming? I got to fix that, man. Bashy, I don't know why that is. It shouldn't spam. Anyway, send us some good bits back. And here's Tony E. How's it going, man? I am at a hotel show because I'm going to be working out of another office all week. So I've been traveling all day and haven't even really logged in or checked my email. I have to do that now, my work email. But yeah, so I'm not sure, folks, that's one thing I was going to talk about in a minute, but I'm not sure when I'll be able to stream this week, just because we have some, team building sort of activities, and I have some developments going on at work, which I'll share in time, and they're pretty exciting, and it does kind of relate to this podcast talk discussion, thing I'm talking about, and some of the subjects I'm following. But anyway, yeah, I'm in a hotel room, so hopefully this is coming through. But you try to catch up on podcasts, and I have kind of let some of them go out of necessity. Just, it's hard to keep up, and I used to commute at one time or another. I've had to commute to and from work. All right, show, see you in a minute. And I used to, like in Nashville, I actually had to commute from Nashville to Franklin, Tennessee, every day, 45 minutes one way. And that gave me a lot of time to catch up on podcasts. But the perfect time to listen to podcasts, right, is in your car, in your vehicle. And that's usually when I did it. And since I'm not in a vehicle much anymore, I really haven't taken the time to do that. And I'm going to try and do that more, because I've found today, out of 5 hours of podcast, that I have been missing a lot of real good quality content. I'm going to call a few out today. And two of those in particular is, I've realized that Datanauts, which of course is a Packet Pushers podcast, Datanauts is really focused on data center, but that's probably not a good way to encapsulate everything that they're doing. Bashy Meshy, that's the only reason I could put up with my 1 hour drive. Yeah, podcast, man. I hate to say I miss commuting, but I do in a way, because I realize that and that's strictly my fault. Like, it's cop out in a way, because there's no reason I can't listen to these podcasts at home. It's just when you're at your computer or whatever, it's just harder to take time. But yeah, it's something I need to do, because there's some very pertinent podcasts. I really have been impressed. Like I said, the podcast, there's some episodes I was catching up on from 2017. And there were certain subjects that I searched for. Like last night, I preloaded. Before I went to bed, I preloaded and made sure I downloaded. I use an Apple Podcast app, and it unfortunately has gotten a little out of date, I think, and is a little cumbersome to use. It used to be easier to use. I don't know, they've changed it a little bit. Anyway, if you know of a better podcast app, I've heard some mentioned. If there's one that you really like that you think works better on iOS and on Mac, let me know, and I may try it, because I was a little frustrated. But anyway, I preloaded. Datanauts has been covering, not just data center, but they have been covering cloud. They have been covering automation, orchestration, and I heard some really excellent podcasts today. I'm going to call them out. If you have not listened to these yet, again, I'm not going to call all of them out, because some of them I would start listening to and I would just skip, because, again, time is so precious that I have to be very selective in the material that I choose to listen to, right? So it's tough. Some I don't want to skip, but these are really good. I'm going to call them out here in the meat chunks of the day, right? But anyway, the material that they're covering is awesome. They have now, I know PacketPushers has Briefing in Brief, which is good. I like, because that's news and analysis of the news. You know, most of us now get our news typically on Twitter. I mean, a lot of us do anyway. I still watch the evening news. Like, I like to watch Lester Holt sometimes, just to see visually kind of what's going on, see some video. But I don't really watch news video anymore. I rely on Twitter. I have two accounts. One is Land Tamer, the other is personal. And that's what I use to keep up with the news. I also keep up with, on the Land Tamer account, a lot of industry news. For, that's where you hear it first. Typically these days, right, is Twitter. But so what I like about PacketPushers, they have, of course, adapted to that. And they're not trying to deliver you new news, but they're basically going over some news and some analysis of that and impact. So I like that. Briefings in Brief. It's brief, it's brief, obviously, but I like their analysis. So I listened to a few of those, but the other one I listened to today was Network Collective. Of course, has been putting out more and more great content. I think they're kind of doing a little bit of what PacketPushers has done, in that they have these series. So I don't know that they're necessarily advertising those as separate podcasts. Of course, with Network Collective, you get video. Also, if you want, I think PacketPushers is starting to shift. Like Greg Fair's been doing some video, which I like. I want to see more video, because that's what I watch at my desk is videos, But strictly with the podcast, they also, of course, their shows, the audio is on the podcast. And it was a great one by Vint Cerf. I don't know if y'all have heard that one yet. This is probably more for not necessarily practical knowledge. It is, of course, the history series. But I think there's some things to be learned there. And listen to it all the way through the end, if you haven't yet. Because at the end, he talks about sort of a new network that he's building in space. It's really amazing, folks. I was about to actually, it was good, but I was getting close to my hotel and I was about to skip it. And then I hung on, and man, he has some really cool stuff he talks about at the end. But anyway, that's just what I'm doing right now. Again, not a lot to report. I won't have a lot of time to study tonight, because I have to be in kind of early tomorrow in the office. And I've got to get everything ready. So I may do a little study. I will say we had some great discussions on something that you have probably seen many times in your PCAPs and ignored. Or you're like, okay, I see this, but I know I had ignored this for a long time. But for some reason yesterday or the day before, I was looking at some PCAPs, And I was looking at something very specific, and I noticed these loops, something that is labeled as protocol loop. So if you haven't seen on Instagram, that's another thing I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put new content, be more routine with new content. And I used to sort of multiplex and put, like, I'd take a screenshot of something, or I'd take a PCAP and I'd pose a question, like a challenge, and I'd put that on Instagram. Well, I'd put the same thing, I like copy paste to Twitter. Well, now I'm trying to do more content, and I'm trying to sort of separate the platforms a little bit. So if you're not subscribed to me on Instagram, definitely check it out. The links are below in my channel description. But I'm trying to do that more. So I'm also considering some other avenues of content. Like, I'm thinking about striking up, going back into blogging. Obviously not super regular or routine, but I think there's just some content. I've got a lot of ideas, and there's some content I think that may actually go better in a blog. So we'll see. But anyway, yeah, follow on Instagram. There was a lot of discussion. And generally now, all that stuff I will talk about in Discord. And so I showed it on Discord. As a matter of fact, let's pull it up in our routing and switching channel, because we have channels for service provider, security, data center. That was, I think, Banner MOTD came up with the correct solution. But yeah, so I'm going to post on Instagram the uncensored, unredacted image, but in the protocol here it's going to say loop, and you will see it, like, look, if you look at your timestamps, even if you turn nothing else on, a Cisco router generally, and that doesn't matter, if it's physical, if it is in a virtual environment, it is going to send these packets, or these frames, Ethernet frames called loop frames. And if you read, it is fascinating, guys. If you look on Twitter, I actually posted the origin, because this is not an IEEE standard. The loop frame is not an IEEE standard. It is from, I'm not even sure who it was that proposed it. A lot of the original Ethernet idea, a lot of the ideas of Ethernet were hatched in Xerox labs, right? And so this is actually came out of Xerox in their original proposal for Ethernet standards. And there's a notebook, like, you cannot find, I looked, you cannot find a text document on the internet, I haven't, that explains this proposal of what this loop frame is. The idea is to check on an Ethernet segment, for example. It's sort of a very rough or rudimentary sort of check of the wire, So am I hearing, it's kind of like an elementary frame ping, right? It's like constantly sending these out, a pulse. And it's not really an echo packet, but it's a way for a device to detect another device on the segment. And there really is no implementation that I can see in a modern day router, although it is part of the Ethernet programming that is on modern day iOS. So it's probably a continuation. There are probably some very old network applications that use this somewhere, mainframe, I don't know, but it's still included, and these are still sent on the wire. And anyway, it's interesting. So most people, like I think Sho said today when he was looking at it or mentioning it, he was like, yeah, he said, I saw it, and I've always just filtered out, because yes, you've seen, I guarantee you've seen it, and you've probably done the same thing, just filtered out. We got some chat. Yeah, there it is. Thank you, Banner. Wireshark actually does a nice write-up on it, and I think wireshark.org has a link to the original published standard, which it cracks me up, because in today's modern day internet, I guess no one has ever, and this is slow, I know, this laptop, no one has ever really published, no you did not, Oh man, I'm sorry. I gotta fix this guy's banner. That's no problem with the link. the bot's being mean. Stop being mean, Nightbot. Be nice. I gotta fix Nightbot. Anyway, on that link, it has it to the PDF, like the Ethernet standard document, and you actually see where there was some binding on the notebook, and they removed the binding to be able to scan in the document. So maybe someone, put the original like text document in their trash and emptied the trash, and no one has the original text document, so they had to scan it. I don't know. It just cracks me up, but it's still around on our routers today. Fascinating. Anyway, if you see that, now you know what that is, and I'm going to try to find, there's some more of those. This led to some questions on Twitter about ARP. Someone had some original ideas about ARP, and I was trying to disprove that theory, and I found myself a little unsure about the source and destination on ARP frames. So I went back and I researched that late last night, and I want to share some of that. Maybe tomorrow, if I have time, I'll share some of that. What are the different ARP packet types? Because it varies. A lot of times the destination of an ARP or gratuitous ARP or an ARP request is going to be all Fs. It's going to be a broadcast. But sometimes ARP will send a request from a specific hardware address to a specific hardware address. The destination is not always going to be a broadcast. So my question was, I needed to be sure, well, no, this could not be an ARP because of the source and the destination. And I was able to confirm, yes, there is no scenario that I could find where an ARP frame would have both its source and destination address be the same. I could not find that anywhere. Now, Show had an interesting thought about BFD, which I understand initially, because if you look at a BFD packet, it is actually, though, it is a packet, is an IP packet. It has a IP address. So that's why this could not be BFD. But BFD is a similar concept. It's actually sending a frame or a packet, and it can, when you use the echo function, right? You can send it, and you would expect the other end to simply reflect the BFD packet right back to the interface, because it's going to look at the destination address, and it's going to be the interface that just received that BFD packet on. That's how BFD is so efficient, right? It requires no processing. It can be done in hardware, right? So same concept, I think, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Show, because this is kind of a similar concept, I think, to what the way this loop protocol worked, just in reverse. So it would not actually, it's basically layer 2. Very similar concept. Anyway, moving right along, guys. This has gone longer than I thought it would. Current attack plan, again, I'm going to be traveling. It's going to be limited accessibility this week. I'm going to be doing some activities in the evening. There's some team stuff we got going on, so I'm not sure how much I'll do, but I'm going to try to wrap up the redistribution chart, and maybe that's something I can work on my lunch break tomorrow, is a summation of the ARP. Because you've got, think about it, guys, you got an ARP request, ARP replies, you got gratuitous ARP, which is really an ARP reply. You've got reverse ARP, inverse ARP. There's a lot of ARP stuff that happens in layer 3 protocol, right? So anyway, I want to go over that, and it's kind of helped me to get that GARP. That's gratuitous ARP, right, Banner? I know there's a delay in chat, but yeah. So anyway, good stuff. Streaming updates. Like I said, I'm traveling this week. I'm going to try to. I've got a little tiny camera and microphone in this little laptop I have. So we're going to try that out, see how it goes. Today's trivia: how is iOS XE different or better than iOS? Banner MOT mentions HSRP, VRRP uses it. Oh, really? Okay. Really? Oh, yes, but when it uses it, does it have its own special ARP message type, or is it just using like gratuitous ARP request, ARP reply? I'm curious on that. The fact that I don't know means that I need to clarify that too for myself. So good point, very good point, Banner. Appreciate it. So yeah, getting to iOS XE, how is it better? Well, the main thing about iOS XE is a modular operating system. So whereas traditional iOS is monolithic, so if you have a process crash in iOS, there is no isolation. Like the process is going to crash for the device. In iOS, you can actually segment running processes on your system. So, you can have shared port adapter, right? Can be a separate process. As a matter of fact, you can have a separate piece of code or part or image to run that process in iOS XE. So those are, that's one of the main advantages is you have segmentation of your processing. And if one process crashed, for example, the shared port adapter process crashes, you may be able to restart that, and it doesn't affect the other parts or functions of the processor running on the router. So yeah, it's just basically an update. That's how Linux is, and Linux made that jump quite a while ago, and of course iOS XE has been around for quite a while too now, hasn't it? But that is one of the main advantages. So I don't really have any trivia for today. Maybe we'll talk about that. What are all of the, let's do that, tomorrow's trivia. Name all of the ARP packet types and their uses. Yeah, there we go. How's that? So can you name them? I pretty much can now, but by tomorrow I'll be able to. I went back and I don't know what's going on there. I went back and studied it. There we go. And so, yeah, that'll be a good thing for us to kind of work on tomorrow. Anyway, these are the three meat chunks I have. These are the three podcasts that were outstanding. Of all the podcasts I went through today. PacketPushers Datanauts, getting to day 2 cloud. This is particularly useful for me, at least as of right now. I have like I'm on a sort of part-time cloud implementation team. And hey, DeBizzle, good to see you, man. Glad to have you here in the chat. But yeah, this is a really good one, and I think this is pretty recent, and it is awesome. This one is Ned Bellavance. This may go back to last year, so you may have already heard this one, Networking as Code with Terraform. Ned Bellavance is part of the company where he's one of the people that came up with not only Terraform, but Vagrant, and there's something else that his company is responsible for. Very smart man. And this is his interview, and then of course they talk about Terraform, which we talked about actually as recently as yesterday. We're discussing that a little bit, and of course we talked about Ansible. But yeah, very good podcast. And this one, Vint Cerf, again, this came out recently this week, I think, or last week, but really good, really impressive. So anyway, I hope that that's been helpful today, folks. Again, I'm going to wrap it up here. I'm going to get ready for, I got a lot going on tomorrow, but it's been great chatting. We'll see you folks, of course, in Discord, on Twitter, Instagram, etc. And man, it's such a great community. I hope you're having a good Monday. Hope everybody's like planning out their week. Hope you're getting your, Monday's your first day of opportunity to kind of set the pace for the rest of the week, right? And start your, continue your good habits. So hope your habits are in line and your schedule's in line with getting your labbing done, getting your study done, and heading towards that cert, man. Let's keep each other motivated. And thanks so much for stopping by, and we shall see you back here hopefully tomorrow. I'll let everyone know on Discord for sure. But hopefully we'll see you back here tomorrow, and we'll exchange good bits here on the Land Tamper stream. Good night, all.